If your company has a CMM and you do your own part measurement programming, the next segment is most likely for you. Yep. Creating CMM measurement programs, if any of you have ever done it or seen it done, often take a lot of hours. A lot of hours go into developing a part program for a CMM, and this can cause production cycles to be held up. But if you have software that works directly from a model-based definition to automatically create your part measurement program, you can drastically decrease the programming time. And in fact, it can decrease it from hours to just minutes. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about just that technology with our guest, Gene Hancz, CMM product specialist from Mitutoyo. Morning, Gene.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine.
All right. Okay, well, just real quickly, can you describe the typical process that a CMM programmer usually goes through to set up a part measurement program?
Well, the typical process would be one of two ways. If they're working with a hard copy paper print, it's very time consuming that you're doing one dimension, one datum structure at a time at the CMM, or if you're a very good programmer, with an online editor, not actually measuring the part. But both of those methods are very time consuming and are subject to making data entry errors. Another method is if you do have a CAD model and you're online at the CMM, you'll actually be selecting features off the CAD model as it measures the part and then entering in datum sets and or tolerance information. So it's still a little bit time consuming. That is probably the two most common ways, and you can do either method offline or online, but it's still very time consuming.
So Gene, what does the software do in place of that procedure?
Well, the software that can take the CAD model and take a lot of the bulk of automatically programming the part from start to finish. That is, it knows all the GD&T information, it knows all the tolerance information. All the operator needs to give additional information is what CMM am I going to measure it on, what are the parameters that CMM works with, what sensor technology does it incorporate, and then let the software read through the CAD model and determine the best, most efficient way to measure and tolerance that part.
So when you said one of the inputs from the programmer is the type of CMM or the model of CMM or whatever it's on, so the software understands the different constraints of different CMMs?
Well, you can have the same exact model CMM configured differently with different sensor technology. So you not only have to have the CMMs themselves system configured, but down to the sensor that's incorporated. One model machine might have a scanning probe, one may only have a touch probe.
Okay. So, offline, and we should mention, obviously, you're with Mitutoyo, and we're talking about Mitutoyo, that's software that does this. But offline, we've talked about how this software can be used on any CMM and not just let's say Mitutoyo equipment. So, for me, the question is, what is the common element that makes this possible? How can, without knowing the ins and outs of some other manufacturer's CMM, how can this software create a parts program for some other manufacturer?
Well, the avenue that we would use would be in conjunction with our current CAD-based programming software would be a DEMAS part program. We can know what the machine configuration is from any target machine and then program around it that way. And then our part program would then be exported out to a DEMAS part program.
Okay, so the common element here is DEMAS, is that right?
Right, for a non-Mitutoyo CMM.
For a non-Mitutoyo CMM. Okay, all right. And when we talk about, I think I mentioned in the introduction, being able to cut down the amount of time it takes to do program a part. So what kind of time savings are you guys seeing with the software version versus doing it manually?
Well, we have seen in testing and actual part demonstrations, it being taken anywhere from 50% up to 95% time savings. It just depends a lot on how much information is actually contained within the CAD model, because CAD models are subject to having things left off, like for instance, a missed data. And luckily the software that we're incorporating will either let you reload a updated CAD model that has a correction to it, or will allow you to make the correction with our project utilizing a CAD model missing that datum feature.
Okay, well, Gene Hancz, CMM Product Manager for Mitutoyo. You and I are actually going to be on a webinar next Thursday, April 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, where we're going to be talking about just this topic. We're going to get to it in a lot more detail. 1 hour webinar that's going to deal with how to reduce your CMM programming time up to 95%, as you just mentioned. And again, that is on next Thursday, April 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And that will be Gene here with us, and I'll be hosting, and Gene's will be providing the brains, and I'll just be providing the questions. And Gene, thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we'll see you next Thursday.
We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks, Gene. And sign up for that one. Look out for your emails as well. If you haven't registered for it yet, be sure to do it. You can also do it, I think, through the there's a link.
Yeah,
right
the
in
link
our
below the player page will actually take you to the registration page for the webinar.
That's right. Okay.